Alright, hello and welcome back to another Concept Court tutorial. This is Cortland here, and this is my second tutorial ever. This time we'll be going over a character design that I did for a client as opposed to a mute comic book page. But I chose this character design because I use a lot of different coloring techniques in here. And I don't know. I'll just go through and try to explain them, explain what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, etc. Anyway, this character's name is Noah, and he's a writer. And according to the specs, he is trapped inside a fantasy-esque setting. The client that commissioned me to do this, he's still in the process of writing it, so my job here is to explore the concept and help him come up with something. So anyway, like I said, Noah's a writer, and without getting into the plot, he's in a situation where his ability to write gives him powers in this world. Not going into how that is, etc. But I kind of pictured him in this concept as a wizard of sorts. Not necessarily a traditional wizard like, Gandalf with a hat. But, you'll see as I go through this character design, he has like a lot of wizardy elements. So you'll notice the original sketch in the blue, the character has glasses. That's because this is not the first sketch I've done, or the first character concept I've done for this character. There's actually another one that I was commissioned for where he's in the real world, and in the real world he wears glasses. So I thought maybe, and this is just me going through like possibilities, I thought maybe when he comes to this fantasy world, for some reason he doesn't need glasses. And there aren't necessarily any wrong answers, since we're really just exploring the character in this situation. If we were doing like a final character concept, this would take many more renditions of the character. As it is with this commission, I think it's only about maybe three or so. But yeah. You'll see here, I actually decided to scratch everything that I had done with the waist. I thought the waist was like too hippie and too skinny at the torso, especially for a male. So I actually ended up going over all of this line and continuing with a new bodily shape, slightly more baggy shirt, etc. there's an actual jump here with this new recording because I was actually continuing to work on it without the screen recording going. Uh, so here you'll start to see me working on the final line. Uh, what you saw before was the secondary rough, which is not always the case, but sometimes it helps to rough it out more than once, sometimes more than twice. Uh, you'll see that with some of my other concepts on Patreon. And here we get to Noah's bag, where you'll see he has all of his writing utensils right on the outside. Um, he's got pencils, he's got pens, he's got pencils. I don't think that's a thing, but you know, and he's got like, I don't know, he's got one or two writing books on the inside of that bag. I'm trying to remember if I actually had that in there. Yeah, I did drop them in there. Okay, so it looks like it's about two. I put about two or three in there. And here is actually where you get to those wizardy elements. I don't know if anybody else thinks about it this way, but I don't know. When I think wizard, I think like like old fantasy wizard. I think of like vagabond pants, baggy pants with like patches all over, kind of like, I don't know, an old timey hobo or something like that. But like these pants have been worn for a long time, and they've been in need of a lot of repair. And they're not in the modern world where a repair is like almost seamless. In the modern world, you wouldn't even repair pants; you would just get a new pair. But he's in this fantasy world where, like, your pants are valuable. You don't want to get new pants, or you're not always wealthy enough to get new pants, I guess. But they just they have a lot of repairs on them, patches. I just like that aesthetic, for a wizard or an old timey wizard. Again, I don't know if that's like an accurate portrayal, but that is what I think of anyway. I believe I was looking at reference for this, but reference for like wizards. I like to use Pinterest for my references a lot. If nobody else knows, like, Pinterest is like one of the greatest reference resources ever. Uh, there might be better ones, I'm sure there are, but Pinterest is what I use. we get to the coloring, the fun part, to some people anyway. Um, so the first thing I did, at least with this character concept, the first thing I did was actually add some grunge. You know, he's a vagabond. You know, he's traveling out there. He's getting dirty. So I added some grunge to like key areas on his body. Um, and I have a few brushes. Actually, this brush, which I love, I don't have it anymore. I've been searching for it. I recently reset my computer, so all of those brushes that I had when I was recording this, they're all gone. So I have to re-find them or create a new one. You know, so but this brush is gone, but I like to use it to create grunge and then also to paint. Yeah, if I'm doing like a more painterly style, which actually I think I did on this concept at one point, but I scrapped it, and I don't think I recorded any of the parts that I did in that style. But you also see I go through a few different types of brushes while I'm creating this grunge around the character concept. Um, and one other trick that I like to use just to add texture to my concept, um, is I turn on not add noise, but I turn on the dissolve mode of the brush, and it creates like this noise effect as you're using it. The only thing I don't like about it is that you don't get any values from, I don't know, am I saying that right? Values from the brush. Like it's all like, if you have black, like it's all gonna be like straight black. There's no like 80% black, 50% black to 30%. It's just straight black, and the gradient or the values actually just come from the dot pattern. Um, what I do to kind of remedy that is I actually create a clipping mask over the layer, and I use a brush, most likely the circle fade brush, to kind of fade that out a little bit more, if I have any problem with it at all. And here's where I start actually adding the lighting. Um, my style is actually going through a renaissance of sorts. I don't know if that's the right term, but my style is changing. It used to be that I would draw in the shadows of a piece. More recently, I've started just doing light layers. Um, there are a couple reasons why I do it that way now. Uh, One is if you color in light layers versus color in shadows, you'll find that you end up doing a lot less work. Uh, at least in certain case, at least with the way that I like to color my pieces, I find that I there's a lot less space filled in with light than there is with shadow, or at least what I use as my shadow in my concepts. The other reason is that's technically how life is. You're not adding. How do I say it? When your body is lit, or when something in the real world is lit, it's not shadow that's being added to it. It's light that's being added to it. Um, so like all of the values are technically the same, while light is being shined onto the object or body. Um, I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but yeah. So technically, it's more realistic to leave the body the same color, or the object the same color, and add light to it, versus uh, leave the body the same color and add shadows to it. And here's where we get to one of my favorite techniques, where I add a clipping mask over the the lighting layer, and then I kind of fade the shadows, or at least certain shadows, like where it would fade in real life to some degree. I wouldn't call myself like a realistic shader, or lighter. I don't know. I'm very stylistic with the way that I choose to do my coloring, but I find that when I add gradients, or fade like the tips of like certain lighting edges, it tends to give it a more unique feel. And here is actually something that I don't do with a lot of my work. I'm actually adding values in without the color. Technically, this makes things take longer, which is why I don't always practice it, but it's good practice when you're doing a character concept, just to make sure that, you know, all of your colors in the end like have a good value set. Another way to do this actually would have been to do it in color and then grayscale it, or like desaturate it, just to see how the values and the contrast like stacks up between the character's different parts. I did this kind of backwards here. I think my thought process was just to see like how I wanted the values to stack up, like from light to dark, and like how I was going to make that work with the final coloring. Here we get to the secondary light layer, where I like to call this one the reflective light. So it's a much more subtle light bouncing off of, you know, surrounding objects. So this isn't necessarily realistic, but I like to make this one a color, just a random, usually not natural color, even though technically, given that he's in a, I don't know, I imagined him like just on a, in a normal, maybe deserty setting. It would be a natural color like brown or a little bit of orange brown. I'll usually go for like a more neon color to make it stand out, just to make it look cool versus being realistic. But this is called reflective light. Then we get to what I don't know. I guess I'll call this the sheen of his skin. I imagine his skin is a little bit sweaty or oily, so it's given the sheen off. And this is probably the most realistic lighting that I apply to him, at least in the manner that it acts. And looking back at it now, I think I could have done the face a little bit better. And here's where I actually add in some colors. Yeah, I took a lot of unique approaches here, where all I did was actually edit the hue and saturation of the grayscale colors that I put in there. I went for a more unusual coloring of his pants. You know, you don't see a lot of characters with yellow pants. At least I don't think so. Maybe Dan from Street Fighter. Oh, not Dan. Sean from Street Fighter. But yeah, I guess Naruto from Naruto. But in the end, I ended up getting rid of the light colored pants for more. I think I had a conversation with the client, but I ended up getting rid of the light colored pants for more, I don't know, what you call it, traditional, a more common dark colored pants with a light colored shirt. And I think in the end I also added a symbol to his shirt. I don't know. I wonder if I added that to the recording. I hope so. No, I didn't. But anyway, you guys on Patreon, you guys, you've seen the final piece anyway, so you've seen the symbol that I had on the shirt. And that's about it, guys. I appreciate you watching. I hope to make many more of these. I apologize for it being a little bit rough, but this is my first time doing this. I promise I'll get better, hopefully. And I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.